friends of the World's World Project 11th edition. Today, many issues that we have to talk about regarding the world, of course. There's many hope for the future when it comes to science. The human genome has been explored in ways as never before, and the hope for the future of humanity, according to science, is promising. Of course, there has been many issues that have come with the new discoveries when it comes to the human genome and the precision in which is being handling and manipulated nowadays. Almost surgical precision, the tool for gene discovery, and of course the call for ethical guidelines when it comes to how is it that scientists all around the world are going to apply the different laws that are going to change, of course, and vary depending in the country that this scientific progress is developed. Who is going to pay for this? Who's going to be able to afford this kind of evolutionary progress when it comes to science and technology? Apparently, it's very expensive to be able to produce a new human being without the diseases that can be transmitted from generation to generation. Genetically speaking, this can be corrected by changing some aspects in the genetic code. We're talking about more than 30 billion combinations here. But anyway, it's very promising. The ethical questions, of course, are going to rise because it's obvious that, for example, when it comes to the application of genetic mutations or genetic alterations in human beings, what are the purpose to this? And what is the intentions of the laboratories in order to do and accomplish such an unimaginable until 10 years ago only in the books of fiction, the possibilities for the human race to advance for a better future? That means that these genetically modified individuals that are going to born in the next few decades are going to be with zero defects. Apparently, those zero defects are going to be dictated apparently by algorithms. And it's very possible that these programs of what is good and what is not good, what is right, what is perfect, and what is superior to normal standards are going to be dictated by algorithms or people that knows apparently very well the psychology and the physiology of the human beings. So lots of talk these days regarding the genetic code and the application and advances when it comes to technology and the modification of our genetic structure. What are going to be the consequences for this? In terms of military research and investigation, are they to clear the emotions out of the human beings in order to create massive soldiers with great stature and muscle mass, with only some directives in order for them to develop their soldier duties as commanded? Are they going to put such brains and development further into kind of Robocops or for the militarization of the world or the supremacy of one country on top of the other? Those are the issues that really concern the population, and we all should have a part in these decisions. But of course, the normal people are never taken on account, especially because of moral or ethical circumstances. If somebody wants the kid or girl or boy to be blue-eyed, red-eyed, green-eyed, all these changes are possible nowadays. Many implications regarding the future for humanity and the hope for the future for our race. On the other hand, the other part that has been a motive of preoccupation, we might say, or concern, is the attitude of North Korea regarding the United States, especially when they were sharing almost insults to each other. For example, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and his top national security ADs delivered contrasting messages of alarm and reassurance over North Korea's expanding nuclear capabilities, with the commander-in-chief touting America's atomic supremacy a day after threatening fire and fury for the communist country. As international alarm escalated over the still remote possibility of nuclear confrontation, President Donald Trump on Wednesday dug in on his threats of military action and posted video of his ultimatum to North Korea leader Kim Jong-un. We remember, according to the Associated Press, in a rare reflection of America's own nuclear might, Trump said his first order as president was to renovate and modernize an arsenal that is now far stronger and more powerful than ever before. In the words of President Donald Trump. The suggestion that Trump has done anything to enhance U.S. nuclear firepower was immediately disputed by experts who noted no progress under Trump's presidency. Still, Trump tweeted, "Hopefully we will never have to use this power, but there will never be a time that we are not the most powerful nation in the world." The tweets did little to soothe concerns in the United States and beyond that Trump was helping push the standoff with North Korea into uncharted and even more dangerous territory. While the prospect of military action by either side appears slim, given the level of devastation that will ensue, Trump's attack Tuesday on fire and fury like the world has never seen compounded fears of an accident of misunderstanding leading the nuclear-armed nations into conflict. This week, an official Japanese report and a classified U.S. intelligence document, as reported by the Washington Post, combined to suggest that the North Korean country that is, was closer to being able to strike the United States with a nuclear missile than previously believed. The United States document assessed that the North had mastered the ability to fit a nuclear warhead on its long-range missiles, after North Korea issued its own warning to the United States, suggesting it could attack the American territory of Guam. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson sought to calm the sense of crisis. Speaking earlier on Wednesday, that is yesterday, on his way home from Asia, he credited Trump with sending a strong message to the North Korean leader on the unquestionable United States' ability to defend itself, so as to prevent any miscalculation. Tillerson insisted the United States is signaling a move toward military action, while it pursues a policy of sanctions and isolation of North Korea. North Korea on Wednesday officially dismissed Trump's threats, declaring the American leader bereft of reason and warning ominously, "Only absolute force can work on him," says the president of North Korea. In a statement carried by state media, General Kim Rak-jong, who heads North Korea Rocket Command, also said his country was about to take military action near Guam. He said the North Korea will finalize a plan by mid-August to fire 4 mid-range missiles hitting waters 30 to 40 kilometers away from the island. To this news, the Japan government just this morning said that they will be able to counter the attack of the North Korean nation by destroying the missiles, now that they have to go over Japan in order to reach its target. So Japan is ready to get rid of the missiles if they're tested by mid-August. In the meantime, of course, China has not stopped there. China, which was a little resilient to cooperate with the United States in the beginning of the presidency of Donald Trump this year. But anyway, China took took things in their own hands, and it's working hard in order to carry on its trainings and its war games. Nobody knows exactly what is the reason for China to be preparing these exercises, but it's obvious that the intention is to be ready just in case military action is taken by the United States or by North Korea. And the Chinese Navy and Air Force flexed their muscles in live-fire drills in seas adjacent to the Korean peninsula, the Defense Ministry said, amid regional tensions over North Korea's pursuit on nuclear weaponry. The large-scale exercises were being conducted in the seas and skies of China's east coast, in the Yellow Sea and Bohai Gulf, and included the firing of dozens of missiles, a notice posted late Monday on the Ministry of Defense website said that naval and Air Force assets included dozens of ships, more than 10 aircraft, submarines, and an unspecified number of coastal defense personnel took part in the drills, which the ministry said were aimed at testing weapons and honing the military's abilities in conducting coastal assaults and intercepting air targets. It was not immediately clear whether the war games were meant to send any sort of message, but the announcement comes just days after China backed a US-drafted UN Security Council resolution passed on Saturday that significantly stiffened sanctions against North Korea for its pursuit of nuclear and missile weapons systems. In the wake of the resolution passing, China has reiterated its resolve to side with the international community in opposing North Korea's nuclear weaponization and aggressive saber rattling. China has for some time been engaged in a modernization of its once backward armed forces, seeking military clout commensurate with its economic might, a drive that has caused unease among its regional neighbors. China also has consistently railed against recurring United States-South Korean war games that are directed at deterring a North Korean attack, but which China blames for fanning regional tensions. North Korea vowed Monday that the tough new UN sanctions will not stop it from developing its nuclear arsenal, rejecting talks and angrily threatening retaliation against the United States. So China is in the move. China is playing also a part in this region now that it's very possible that Korean provocations is not only to be taken seriously, but it might develop a pre-nuclear war. It's very possible that that is because President of North Korea is kind of crazy. So yes, the tensions in the world regarding the possible conflict with nuclear weapons, it's closer and closer every time. Important issues to keep in mind in our world. In one side, there's the optimism of scientists in order to make a better future for humanity, to correct humanity defects, genetic defects, so to enhance the possibilities of humankind to survive during whatever is left of our planet. It's the opinion of this program today to say, well, that's awesome. If we can further our knowledge of genetics and we can further our life and we just want to become eternal, well, awesome. The point is, how many people are going to survive that? And what kind of laboratories are going to keep on using this kind of technology after a world war, especially if nuclear devices are used? The possibility is right here, friends of the World's Way Out Project. Enjoy the earth while you can. Other of the aspects that it's important for us to keep in mind today is the sad reality that the ecosystems around the world are failing, and that our mighty scientists still insist on oil and gas as the way out for our energy. We mentioned before many other sources that can be used that we know for more than a century that can be used as a practical fundament to change the ways of energy and how we use and produce energy in this world. There's massive extinction of species all around the world. The Amazon is being devastated. The oceans are being overfished. The coastal areas are being swallowed at high rates by the ocean. It is well known now that most of the coastal cities in the world will be flooded pretty soon, in not more than 10 years. And all for business. Even the sand of the different places of the world are being exported to different countries that buy them. And food security is also other of the aspects that the World Wealth Projects have spoken about in past editions. What is the food security? The food security is to control that the developed countries can secure their food or any kind of food around the world by patenting, that is, by creating monopolies that will sue, for example, the countries that oppose their trade agreements or their free trade agreements. We were talking about hope for the future, and we were talking about the genome, the human genome. I don't see other way to conquer the world from all these crazy adventures that it's getting into, if not by stopping now the use of oil and gas. These guys have plenty of money. These guys amass trillions of dollars a year. So what more do they want? What's going to happen to the world when we have no more water, when we have no more air to breathe, water to drink, or anywhere to go, because everything is dying. All ecological systems are dying, and the heat waves in Europe, for example, in Italy, have killed some people and have caused alarm in the midst of this summer. Canada, in the 150th birthday this year, she's a teenager compared to France and England, where the first immigrants came from. Canada is a teenager. We celebrate happily these 150 years of Canadian existence, of the Federation. And is one of the countries that, with this Prime Minister at least, is trying to control what is happening with the waters, which is the next chapter of the World Wealth Project, and how no one in the world, except for the corporate interest to monopolize through their companies the use of water. How, for example, in Canada, the numbers are worrisome when it comes to how is Canada protecting its water sources, its waterheads, etc. But we speak about hope, and we want to be hopeful in the World Wealth Project. Other issue that deals with Canada this year is, for example, the fact that Canadians are protesting, and some investigations have known that the billions of dollars that Canada sell to Saudi Arabia in the past 10 years, especially when it was Prime Minister Harper was the Prime Minister of Canada, there was lots of billions of dollars in sales in equipment and armed vehicles that are produced here in Canada, in Toronto. But these vehicles are being used to oppress the people in Saudi Arabia and also to attack the people in Yemen. So the Canadian government is now thinking twice if they're going to keep on doing business with Saudi Arabia because of the human rights violations and the use that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is using the material that is being bought by the Saudi Arabians to the Canadian companies. what they can do is that they can modify these transportation vehicles in order to arm them with weaponry. You can put cannons on top, you can put artillery there. So, in other editions of the World's Wealth Project, you have seen, friends, how this is a truth. It's total devastation in Yemen. The agricultural grounds are being devastated and bombed by Saudi Arabia. So yeah, Canada is thinking twice how to deal with these issues when it comes to sell more Canadian-produced armored vehicles to this region. On the other hand, we know that Saudi Arabia now has $200 billion invested in weaponry, which makes Saudi Arabia a very important player in the Middle East. Now that has accused Qatar for being a terrorist nation, what are the intentions of Saudi Arabia really? Is Saudi Arabia going to start its own expansionist ideal? Is Saudi Arabia going to invade Qatar? Is going to invade Yemen? What's going to happen in the near future regarding these matters, especially when a country that is that has caused so many confusion when it comes to human rights and relationships with democratic countries like United States and Canada and Europe, all for oil and energy, when I reiterate we have many other sources of energy available for many years. So the ethical components of these business ideals of capitalism are hitting hard in Canada core when it comes to government decisions regarding to sell more weaponry to this country. $200 billion, it's a lot of weaponry. On the other hand, elections in Kenya. Observers from the United Nations and other countries have said that the elections in Kenya were fair, that there was no fraud in the electoral system. A few people died in this country. And before the elections, before just 1,000 guys were killed because the president of Kenya was elected again and again. And for example, you can see that the mother of a man allegedly shot in the head by Kenya administration police officer in Nairobi was reacting in desperation, and she was stopped by some other people violently. Kenyan police opened fire Wednesday to disperse rioters in several areas after presidential challenger Raila Odinga alleged election fraud, saying hackers used the identity of a murder official to infiltrate the database of the Election Commission and manipulate results in favor of President Uhuru Kenyatta. At least 3 people were killed, as Kenyatta held a strong lead in provisional results with 96% of all polling stations counted. The Election Commission defended the voting system as secure, saying there were no interferences before, during, and after Tuesday's election, according to the Associated Press. 96% in all polls. Wow, what a frightening coincidence. Anyway, so where are we heading with these governments, with these ideals, with this world that we are creating? For one side, we have a lot of optimism and we have a lot of hope for the future. But if you can see, when it comes to genetic terms, for example, we can say that a group of leading biologists earlier in March called for a halt to the use of powerful new gene editing technique on humans, known by the acronym CRISPR. The method allows precise editing of genes for targeted traits, which can be passed down to future generations. With this explainer, we'll look at where this technique came from, its potential, and some of the issues it raises. CRISPR stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats, which is the name for a natural defense systems that bacteria use to defend off harmful infections. Bacteria are infected by other microorganisms called bacteriophages or phages. The intricate details of the mechanisms were elucidated around 2010 by two research groups led by Dr. Dudna of the University of California, Berkeley, and Dr. Carpenter of Umeå University in Sweden. The CRISPR system recognizes specific patterns of DNA from the foreign invaders and decapacitates them by cutting the invader's DNA into pieces. The way that the bacteria target a specific DNA and cleave it gave scientists a hint of its potential in other applications. In 2013, two research groups, one led by Dr. Zhang of Massachusetts for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, and the other by Dr. Chort of Harvard University, successfully modified this basic mechanism and turned it into a powerful tool that can now cut human genomic DNA at any desired location. The ability to cut DNA or genes at a specific location is the basic requirement to modify the genome structure. Changes can be made in the DNA around the cleavage site, which alter the biological features of the resulting cells or organisms. It is the equivalent of a surgical laser knife, which allows a surgeon to cut out precisely defective body parts and replace them with new or repaired ones. That's pretty awesome when it comes to advances in genetics, because who would believe that possible in the last 10 to 20 years? Can imagine what Charles Darwin could think about these matters when he was writing the famous work of his hand and mind after 1 month in Galapagos Island in Ecuador. He might have changed his theory altogether. We don't know that. Scientists have long sought after this sort of genome editing tools for living cells. Two other technologies called zinc finger nucleases and TALEN, that is transcription activator like effector nuclease, are available to achieve the same result. However, the CRISPR technology is much easier to generate and manipulate. This means that most biological research laboratories can carry out the CRISPR experiments. As a result, CRISPR technology has been quickly adopted by scientists all over the world and put into various tests. It has been demonstrated to be effective in genome editing of most experimental organisms, including cells derived from insects, plants, fish, mice, monkeys, and humans. Such broad successes in a short period of time imply we're arrived at a new genome editing era, promising fast-paced development in biomedical research that will bring about new therapeutic treatments for various human diseases. Jennifer Doudna from the University of California, Berkeley, who was one of a co-inventor of the CRISPR, recently called for caution in using the gene editing technology on human cells, according to the United States Department of Energy. For instance, she says, the whole human genome DNA sequence had been deciphered many years ago, but the majority of information embedded on the DNA fragments are largely unknown. Now, the CRISPR technology is enabling scientists to study those gene functions by eliminating or replacing specific DNA fragments and observing the consequences in the resulting cells. We can now link the particular DNA fragments to their biological functions. Recently, cells and even whole animals with desired genome alterations have successfully been generated using the CRISPR technology. This has proven highly valuable in various biomedical research studies, such as understanding the cause and effect relationship between a specific DNA changes and human diseases. Studying DNA in this way also sheds light on the mechanisms for these processes, underlying how diseases developed, and provides insights for developing new drugs that eliminate specific disease symptoms. With such profound implications in medical sciences, Many biotech and pharmaceutical companies have now licensed the CRISPR technology to develop commercial products. For example, a biotech company, Editas Medicine, was founded in 2013 with the specific goal of creating treatments for hereditary human diseases employing the CRISPR technology. However, products derived from the use of CRISPR technology are yet to hit the market with FDA approval. So that's when the call for ethical guidelines appear. With the CRISPR technology, scientists can now alter the genome composition of whole organisms, including humans, through manipulation, reproductive cells, and fertilize eggs or embryos. Those particular genetic traits are then passed down through generations. This brings hope to cure genetic defects that cause various hereditary human diseases such as cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, sickle cell anemia, Down syndrome, and so on. Unlike the current approaches of gene therapy, which temporarily fix defective cells or organs through the introduction of corrected or functional genes, the CRISPR technology promises to correct the defect in the reproductive cells, producing progenies that are free of the defective gene. In other words, it can eliminate the root causes of hereditary human diseases. That sounds awesome, and it is awesome that we have gotten to this point in which we can alter the human gene and create other kinds of people. Like I said in the beginning of the program, it's awesome that we have reached such levels of intelligence and scientific development. But the problem is that if they want to impose to the rest of the world, in the different countries, they have different countries have different ideas about how to manipulate these strings of DNA, traits of DNA. So they can do as they wish. Many movies have spoke about these issues when it comes to monsters and how to create, and this has been a practice, and is the only way to find out how to create better species. Like we heard before, we're talking about that this is applied in animals, like people like a mascot, and they want a mascot with these specific details. They want this mascot to be half red, half blue, with one eye blue and the other one green. They can do it. They can do it in humans and other animals. So, very interesting and very worrisome. What are the limits of the ethics when it comes to this? And humankind, as history has proven, is not always looking for the benefits of all humanity, but for the benefits of themselves and their interests, especially and particularly when it comes to super and ultra rich organizations. What will be their plans? Because as we know, the corporate intelligence is always looking to invade, with the power of money, all kinds of ideas in the scientific world, in the trade world, everything around the world. When it comes to economies, when it comes to banking, when it comes to water, when it comes to resources, we have known that for more than 500 years since the discovery of the New World. Countries like the New World have been fighting terrorism since 1492. Correct, 1492. Countries like Latin America, from Mexico to La Patagonia, have fought terrorism since 1492. What will be the result of these matters? What will be the result if there's a war with Korea? Something we are about to find out, friends of the World's Wealth Project. I guess for today, we have enough information about the future of humanity and why the World's Wealth Project insists on new sources of energy and new developments and new policies, and why it's necessary to find leaders instead of politicians. We need leadership instead of politicians. Politicians have proven that they always look for their interests, which are no more than the interests of the corporate intelligence. The only thing they want to celebrate today, in good hope, is the 150 years, last 1st of July, of Canada, 150. Like I said, she's a teen compared to France and England, which have, of course, centuries and centuries of existence. Hope to see you next time in the next edition of the World's Whale Project. For us, for the country, for the world. Hope to see you next time. Au revoir. Bye bye.